Hi guys, my name is Abhi Lingareddy and I'll be your 11th grade representative this year for Model UN. And my main duty this year is to help you guys. So if you ever need any help, have any questions, or confused about something, or just need help with a position paper or resolution, don't hesitate to email me. Topic for today is resolutions. So what is a resolution? So a resolution is the document that your committee is going to pass at the end of a topic. And it'll basically outline what's happened in the past as well as what solutions that your committee should implement. And in my opinion, they're arguably the most important part of any Model UN committee. And this is because not only are you going to take a lot of time writing this resolution and crafting the solutions that go into it, it's also that much of the debate in committee, especially the second half, centers around what goes in a resolution. And also, the end goal of any committee is to pass a resolution. And so for this reason, resolution can make or break your chances of landing an award. So how do resolutions work? So this is just a general timeline of the process of making a resolution. And so it starts off in the first unmoderated caucus, and this is where you're going to establish your blocks and you're going to hash out the basic ideas that go into a resolution. And the second part is where you're going to actually write the resolution, and this will take part in the subsequent unmoderated caucuses. This is where the content of the resolution starts to take form. And the third part is actually presenting the resolution. This is the most important part of the resolution process because you prove that you actually contributed to the resolution and that you are a leader of the block. And the fourth part is voting on the resolution. This is where your committee just decides whether or not to pass your resolution. Alright, your first unmoderated caucus. So this is where your block is set up. Of course, you want to start reaching out to other delegates before the first unmoderated caucus through notes to delegates that you agree with, that have similar policy positions as you, have similar solutions as you. And this is a group you're going to start writing your resolution with, and you're going to be with them for basically the rest of committee. So make sure you choose these people wisely. And one of the dilemmas that arise is this idea of a wolf versus a sheep. So a wolf is a person that speaks a lot, that's your main competitor, that's going to try to take control of your block. And a sheep is a person that doesn't talk as much, that barely contributes to committee, that has some policy opinions, but doesn't really share them as much. And so sheep, they're more impressionable, and having them in your block, you can start putting your own ideas into a resolution. But that doesn't mean you should totally ignore wolves. If they have similar policy positions as you should totally just align with them and try to fight them. And Yash covered this in the last video, how to counter these wolves. And so make sure you establish yourself as a leader in the block. And this is essential for first getting your own ideas into resolution, but it also puts you at an advantage and for the rest of the committee because you'll be the voice of the block. And going back to the discussion about the wolves, if you beat a wolf basically in the resolution, if you establish yourself as a leader and the wolf is basically below you, then you basically knocked out one of your competitors. So if you're comfortable teaming up with the wolf, go ahead and do it. And so let's take a quick look at this picture. So this guy is like the leader, obviously, of the block. He's going to recruit other delegates to vote for this resolution. He's going to speak about the resolution. This guy is a lot of people in a lot of committees do this, and they just write the resolution, but they don't establish themselves as a leader, and they're not serious award contenders. And so you don't really want to be these people. You want to actively branch out. You want to be that friendly guy. You want to be that leader. Alright, so now we're going to talk about actually writing the resolution. And so there are three parts to every resolution, which is the headings, which includes the sponsors and signatories, your preambulatory clauses, and your operative clause. So let's start with sponsors versus signatories. So sponsors are the people that actually write the resolutions, and they contribute many of the ideas that go in the resolution. They're basically the people that form the block. They're all the leaders of the block. Make sure you don't let freeloaders become sponsors, people that write one clause and become a sponsor. If they want to be part of the block still, let them be signatories. And signatories are people who want to see the resolution discussed and voted on. And so these will be the lesser members of a block that didn't really contribute to the resolution. And in general, people of other blocks that just want to see it discussed. You don't have to agree with it. And if somebody asks you to be a signatory on a resolution, just go ahead and sign it. And make sure that you're a sponsor, because if you're not a sponsor, you won't be able to present the resolution. There's no way you can be seen as the leader of the block. So make sure you're a sponsor of a resolution. And something to keep in mind is that sometimes there's a limit of how many sponsors there are, and sometimes there isn't, but make sure you keep the number of sponsors low. And there's usually a general guideline of how many signatories you need for a resolution to be discussed in committee, and you'll meet the signatory count no matter what. Just ask people in the committee. And so this is just a general graphic of who would be considered a sponsor and who would be considered a signatory. Alright, so headings. This is just some general formatting. So at the top, you're going to say committee name, and you're going to underline it, and then you're going to put the topic, and then you're going to put the list of sponsors. So in some committees, it's usually the most important sponsors go first, but in other committees, it's you just put a random order or alphabetical order. Just make sure you keep that in mind. And this is just a list of signatories, and you put that below the sponsors. And once you're done with that, you're just going to write the General Assembly, and you're going to start the preambles, or the preambulatory clauses. So what is a preambulatory clause? So a preambulatory clause, let's think of this like a medical analogy. So in committee, you're going to talk about what is the problem. So a preambulatory clause is like the diagnosis. What are the problems of the past? What past actions have been taken? What is the problem right now? What is my resolution trying to solve? And so the clauses will contain an outline of the general issues of the committee, past actions that have taken, that have either failed or serve as a useful guiding block for future resolutions, and specific issues that you want your operative clauses to solve. So a preambulatory clause may consist of past treaties and UN resolutions, references to the international law, and statistics about the depth of problems. So you might just be like recalling resolution 2117, which states, and talk about what's good about that resolution, or talk about a resolution that's failed, or some international law that you need to keep in mind while doing this. And statistics, basically just about how bad is this problem. And make sure you're thorough enough to sell that there is a problem, but you don't need to go overboard, because preambulatory clauses aren't the focus of your resolution. So formatting. Alright, you always want to start your clause off with an italicized substantive verb. And so that's an ing verb. So recognizing, acknowledging, emphasizing. You want to end each clause with a comma. And so let's just take a look at some of these clauses. So emphasizing the importance of international consensus on this topic as a one that permeates. So you can see like it talks about some issues that are needed in this resolution that need to be recalled. They're not necessarily solutions. And like approving the joint declaration for the export, like this is a past resolution, past treaty that has been introduced, and it's just something you want to keep in mind that you like, that should be referenced in future resolutions. So this is a list of verbs in preambulatory clauses, so that what starts off each clause, and so affirming, alarmed by, and all those. And you can just a simple Google search. A lot of conferences will give this to you in a delegate handbook, so just don't worry about them. You don't need to memorize any of these. On to the operative clauses. So going back to our medical analogy, the preambulatory clause was a diagnosis, but the operative clause is a treatment that we give to the patient, the solutions to the problem. And when you write these operative clauses, you want to make sure that you're relevant. Make sure most of your solutions have been discussed in the committee, and make sure that you make your mark on the resolution. Make sure these solutions some of these solutions are the ones that you have specifically advocated for in committee and are present in your position papers. But once again, that doesn't mean you only have to put your solutions. If another delegate has a great idea, add it in. There's nothing wrong with adding in a good idea in. It also shows that you're willing to compromise and you're not overbearing. When you're writing these operative clauses, make sure you're as specific as possible. And you can use sub-clauses when needed. And an important formula to keep in mind when you're writing an operative clause is called the W rule. Who, what, when, where, and why. So it starts with who. Who are the major actors? Are they NGOs? Are they UN bodies? Are they specific countries? Who's going to be carrying out the solution? And who's involved in general? What is your solution? Is it some council to ensure transparency? Are there measures to ensure transparency? Just make sure you list exactly what your solution is. When? So an important debate that usually happens in a lot of committees is between short-term solutions and long-term solutions. So you need to make sure that you make the distinction of when this is taking place. Is this like a 2-year thing, or is this a gradual 30-year solution? And why? Where? So where is this solution going to be taking place? Is this just for a specific part of the world? Is it just for the Oceania? Or is this for the entire global world to take note of? Why? And that's basically just saying, what's the point of this solution? What does it do that other solutions haven't done? So make sure you have all those in every operative clause. And make sure you keep in mind committee's jurisdiction and directive. So one of the shortcomings of the United Nations itself is that it doesn't really have any official jurisdiction. It can't encroach on sovereignty, and it can't enforce countries. So that's why you have to be careful on the language you use. You can't make any country do anything. You can only make recommendations. And so you can't enforce a country to take part in your resolution. So the language you should use should be encourages, recommends, calls upon, which you'll see in the next slide. So now to formatting. So make sure you're numbering your operative clauses. There's letters for subclauses, and there's Roman numerals for sub-subclauses. And each operative clause will end with a semicolon. And sometimes you can put a comma, it doesn't really matter, to separate the subclauses. And the last operative clause ends with the period. The end of your resolution is a period. And here are some operative phrases. And make sure you note that these are not forceful words. These are almost recommending words. So just keep that in mind when you're writing your resolution. Alright, so on to presenting the resolution. So as I said at the beginning, presenting the resolutions is one of the most important parts of the resolution process itself. And this is because this is where you show the committee that you're the leader of this block, that you're the leader of this resolution. Because before that, chairs can't really see what's happening in the unmoderated caucus because they aren't really paying attention. And this is where you basically show them. So after they're done being written, the sponsors will only be the ones presented. So as you can see here in the picture, so this group obviously has a lot of sponsors. You go up to, they have something, a projector screen. You'll go and you'll read off each clause, and then sometimes you might explain more. It depends upon which conference you go to. But the most important part of this is the Q&A. And the Q&A is basically question and answers. And so a delegate will ask you a question, and your block has to respond. And this is where you want to speak a lot. Of course, you don't want to speak through every question, and sometimes delegates might direct it at certain countries, but you want to talk a lot. You want to establish yourself as knowing a lot about this resolution, and you want to defend this resolution as best you can so it can soon be passed. And something that you need to remember is some parley pro is, does a delegate yield to a possible series of questions? So basically what that means is, can a delegate ask you more than one question? And a lot of your competitors are going to do this, and they're going to ask you multiple questions to try to trip you up. And if you successfully do this, it looks really good to the chair. So afterwards, there's going to be maybe a pro-con debate or a moderated caucus. So if you aren't able to successfully defend your resolution thoroughly in the time frame, you still have the moderated caucus after to discuss and the pro-cons. All right, amendments. So when a delegate doesn't agree with something in your resolution, they may ask if your bloc wants to make an amendment. So amendment is basically a change to a resolution. And you should do this to other resolutions yourself if you want to make your mark on other resolutions, or if you just don't agree with something that would stop you from voting. And so the vocabulary here is that an amendment is friendly if every single sponsor agrees to it, and that means the amendment will pass to your resolution. But if it's unfriendly, and if even one sponsor disagrees with it, that's when it's called unfriendly, then that amendment will not pass. And so pass amendments if you're unsure about whether your resolution will pass. And you don't always have to accept amendments if you're sure that your resolution will pass. And don't reject an amendment just because a competing delegate proposes it. If it's a good idea, be reasonable once again. And you can propose adding, changing, or deleting clauses from the resolution. So voting on resolutions. So getting your resolutions passed is also really important. So during unmoderated caucus, not only should you write, make sure you're interacting with the other delegates and other blocs and explaining to them the essence of your resolution and why they should vote for it. And in some cases, you can trade votes with other blocs. Say, you guys vote for our resolution, we'll vote for your resolution. But only do it if you actually agree with the resolution. And that way you can also ensure votes for yourself. And there's always delegates that aren't really doing anything. They're just there for no reason. And you can just approach them, and those are just easy votes you can collect. And don't vote no on other resolutions, because once again, if it's a competing bloc and it raises it, don't just vote no. If you agree with most of the points, then vote yes. Because once again, you're representing your country's views. Alright, some final tips before we go. This is really, really important, so make sure you remember this. Do not pre-write or plagiarize any of your resolution, or work on it outside of the unmoderated caucuses. So if the chair finds out that he did this, and the way they can find out is through your Google Docs edit history, they'll throw out your resolution, and this basically ends your chances of getting an award. So just don't do it. And make sure you police the rest of your bloc, and make sure they're not doing it, because I know many other schools might not have the same ethics as us. And also, when you're talking about your resolution committee, make sure you're the point person, and that when people talk about it, they're talking about it like it's your resolution. And make it known to the chair that you're the leader of the bloc. Also, just one final tip to reiterate, don't be that overbearing person. Don't be the wolf. Be cordial, be friendly, be likable. It's really important if you want to get votes and if you want to form blocs with reasonable people. Alright, that's it for today. Thanks for listening. And please, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me.